If we don't accept the fact that they are in those rooms and waiting for us, then we are telling people that not to place their hope in us. We are telling people that our organizations are a false sense of security. And I think with that, we absolutely destroy the social contract we've made with our society as being protectors.
Enchanted Sky Media.
From the Federal Resources Studio, this is Code 3, the Firefighters podcast, hosted by award-winning journalist Scott Orr. Code 3 features interviews with leading members of the fire service, discussing firefighting strategy, tactics, and other topics you need to know more about. Now, here's Scott.
That's right, and I will not let Parkinson stop me. Thank you for joining me again here on Code 3. This is the show for and about firefighters. We're informing and entertaining members of the fire service, just like you, from coast to coast. Do you remember the Tot Finder stickers? For many years, families would put them on the windows of children's rooms, so in case of a fire, rescuers would know they should search that room. They've mostly fallen out of favor, partly for fear that they would alert criminals to the location of potential abduction victims. But there's another reason. One fire department explains it this way. Quote, "We at Easton Fire Department prefer to teach a proactive, quick response to fires. The use of these decals could provide a false sense of security for your family. Children may feel that by having this decal on their window, it will be okay to stay and wait for the fire department, and this isn't the message we're trying to teach them. They need to learn the importance of getting out of the house as quickly as possible and staying out." End quote. The problem, today's guest says, is that we're now counting on victims to do that, to rescue themselves, and that may not be realistic. Shouldn't they rightfully expect firefighters to rescue them? Here to discuss that is Brian Brush. Brian's been in the fire service since 1996, and he's currently a firefighter for the City of Edmond, Oklahoma. He's been a classroom instructor at FDIC and is in the EFO program. And Brian Brush, welcome to Code 3.
Thank you, Scott. I'm happy to be on and discuss this topic with you today, and really appreciate all the podcasts that you have provided to date.
Well, thank you. Are we putting too much emphasis on asking people to avoid being a victim?
It's a fine line to walk, and I think we certainly want people to take responsibility for their own survivability, but at the same time, we as firefighters are the protectors and not the protected, and we have to own our mission. I think the biggest thing here comes down to the shift in that message for people. Years ago, in that time where the Tot Finder stickers were removed, the fire prevention message was exit drills in the home. Now the fire prevention message, it's not a fire prevention message, but it's a survivability message, is to close your doors before you go to bed at night. If you encounter smoke, to not travel those paths of egress, and to compartmentalize yourself. And we need to make sure that message going out to our community is also matching the mission that we're telling our firefighters.
A while back, we did a different podcast on the idea that there are a lot of people who aren't afraid of fire as a real threat. I'm curious if that might be the case here. If I close the bedroom door, it's fine. I can stay there pretty much forever until the fire department arrives.
I think we are telling them to isolate themselves, and it certainly will buy them time. And I think that's more the key message, not necessarily the complacency of it. I mean, we certainly know that complacency in fire safety is an issue, not just in our civilian population, but in our firefighters population. You look statistically, and the frequency of fires has dropped significantly, but there's two angles to the risk. There's the frequency and the severity. And the severity is still very much unchanged. The civilian fire fatalities per 1,000 fires has essentially remained. Fires are growing at faster rates. They're producing more toxic gases. So by compartmentalizing both our firefighters and our civilians, we're taking advantage of stopping those flow paths, of delaying those toxic gases. So the message is trying to provide the civilians such a simple tool for their protection. If it was complacency, the doors would still be open. But if they are taking hold of this simple tool of closing a door and compartmentalizing themselves, then I think it's a great way to potentially have it impact on reducing the severity of fire fatalities in America. Definitely more so than changing out smoke detector batteries or any of those more active measures. I think it strikes a chord with people to just that something as simple as closing my child's door at night will give them a better chance at survival. It's one of the things I pass on to people the most.
But how dangerous is it ultimately to have these fire safety campaigns that don't simply say, get out?
Well, I think in a lot of ways, we're looking at the statistics, and if you dig into civilian fire fatalities, the majority of civilian fire fatalities and the location of victims is in the paths of egress. It's in the hallways. It's at the front doors. So the highest number of civilian fatalities is in trying to escape fires. The second highest location is in the bedrooms. So, we want to encourage people to try to get out of fires, but we have to recognize the fact that the fires are certainly growing at a faster rate. We use the term flow path all the time in firefighting. That is happening in these houses with open spaces. So we have to have a plan B for the people when their escape routes are blocked, and that is to compartmentalize themselves in a room. So I know we want people to escape, but if escaping a fire with the growth rates that we're seeing is putting them in a probably the greatest risk, then maybe compartmentalizing themselves is a better option. You look at the second highest location for fatality victims, and it's in bedrooms. What isn't quantified in that is, are they closed doors or open doors? My guess is that the majority of those are open bedroom doors. So a closed door campaign, a isolate yourself if you can't escape. I'm hopeful that this single action will provide people a plan B if they can't get out, and make them safer when they are asleep and the smoke detectors aren't activating. So I think there's a great potential for 5 years from now us to evaluate the success of this type of message.
Based on your experience, and I know you don't have stats on this, what do you think your average civilian's reaction to a house fire is? What do you think based on what they've been taught to do, they will do?
I think people are very much afraid of fire. I think we have because of the world of video and recording, you need not look far to see how the public is reacting to fire. And, you spoke about the complacency of fire. It's not something that they experience every day. So if anything, we're seeing people respond with a greater level of panic. It seems like we're seeing a lot of apartment fires where people are jumping from balconies, whether that's a sense of panic and insecurity, or it's because of the speed of progression of fire.
I've seen a lot of that video myself, and it strikes me that we seem to be seeing more people panicking and doing that when it's not really necessary. Maybe they're in a room with a closed door, or maybe the fire is elsewhere in the structure, but they seem to be getting out to the window screaming for help and then jumping whether or not they really need to. Is that your experience?
I don't have personal experience with the matter, but I would agree that we're seeing it more. Whether or not us seeing it more and it occurring more is really a tough thing to say. We have more video than we've ever had before, and we don't document in INFRS reports rescues or jumpers or anything like that. So there's no way for us to really know if people are acting with a greater sense of panic than they have before, or if we're just able to observe it more. But I will say, it happens on the fire ground as well. As the frequency of these events declines, it's going to be a less comfortable situation for both our victims and our firefighters. So we have to, operate with that sense of urgency rather than that sense of panic, both on the civilian side and on the firefighter side. If we can teach people that if they compartmentalize themselves, they put barriers between themselves and the fire, that they can regain their composure and start to think, calmly again and work through that survival process. We can also teach that to our firefighters. The message going out to the civilians is to compartmentalize yourself for safety. The message going out to our firefighters should be to cool and compartmentalize, because we have the ability to compartmentalize fire and also to cool it with hand lines. So I think there's a great potential for us to kind of come to center with our message to the public and our message to our firefighters in training and all the fire dynamic information that's out there, and really be productive, and also, utilize data collection to see if we're having an impact on that severity of event side.
I'll be back with more right after this.
Federal Resources is a mission-critical solutions provider with only one goal: to empower and prepare the first responder for any threat, at home or abroad, that they are called on to respond to. Your mission is to protect and defend. Our mission is to make sure you're equipped with the knowledge and training on response techniques to current threats. We'll make sure you know the latest innovations in technology to ensure mission success. Every time. You look out for everyone else. Let us look out for you. Learn more at federalresources.com.
Do you think we've taught people to wait for the fire department to come save them?
I guess here's my take on that. And it's kind of interesting because you, in the introduction, you provided a statement from a fire department that says, we don't want our civilians to have a false sense of security. Man, I think that's extremely damaging. I want to be the sense of security for my community as a firefighter. I want to be the sense of security for my community as a fire department, if I'm speaking for my organization. The simple fact is that people should try to make an attempt to get out. But if they can't get out, I would hate for them to stay in a hallway and not understand that their next option is to get behind a closed door and be protected. Let's be honest, in any situation that someone's calling 911, we are their last hope. We certainly can't save everybody. We can do everything right in our business and not save ourselves. But we should never count ourselves out as the last hope. And that's my greatest concern. We are telling people to close their doors. The message is already out there. It's one of the most viral public safety messages I've ever seen. One, because it's so visual, the difference between an open door and a closed door. That train is already going down the tracks. If we don't accept the fact that they are in those rooms and waiting for us, then we are telling people that not to place their hope in us. We are telling people that our organizations are a false sense of security. And I think with that, we absolutely destroy the social contract we've made with our society as being protectors. And that brings me great concern.
Well, let me ask you point blank then. Do you believe that some departments are doing that? They're destroying that social contract by diminishing people's faith in the fire department to help them? No,
I think anybody who's gotten into the fire service came to this profession to serve. Let's slow down, take a step back, and consider that there may be a potential contradiction here. Let's look at what the message is going out to the community, what we're telling people about flow paths and cooling fires, and let's look for the constant themes and the things that we can share. If we're telling them to close doors, then we need to tell our firefighters to vent enter search. We have to have the message match the mission. If we're telling people to close doors and we're telling firefighters not to vent enter search, then there's conflict there. And I don't think any fire departments are intentionally voiding that social contract. I think, though, that we do run the risk of that, and we do run the risk of having policies that don't match community messages, and we're only one incident away from that being called out in front of us. So with our preventative mindset is there a potential for us to reevaluate our policies, procedures, and trainings in comparison to what the public is hearing and what our victims are experiencing, and make sure that those two are in line.
All right, Brian Brush, thanks for talking with me today on Code 3.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it.
And we put some more information on whether victims should expect firefighters to find them on our website at code3podcast.com/VES. Check it out. Now, here comes your trivia question. The doorway used for access of the initial attack line may be the first ventilation opening to which the fire has access. That's why it's a good idea for the team to do what after they open the door? I'll have the answer right after this.
If you like Code 3, you'll love the Code 3 Bull Session. It's more discussion with our guests on any topic. Sometimes it's serious. Sometimes it's not so serious, but it's only available to patrons of Code 3. Find out what you've been missing. Go to code3podcast.com/support. Pledge just $10 a month to support Code 3, and you'll get immediate access to all the Bull Sessions in our library and future interviews as we post them. Become a patron today, support the show, and get access to the Code 3 Bull Sessions.
Here's your trivia answer. The doorway used for access of the initial attack line may be the first ventilation opening to which the fire has access. That's why it's a good idea for the team to pause briefly to allow the pressurized products of combustion to diminish. All right, that's it. That's all for this edition of Code 3. Thank you for listening. I'll be back next time with more, and I hope you'll join me. I'm Scott Orr, and until then, stay safe.
Code 3 is made possible through the generous support of Federal Resources. Visit them at federalresources.com. This show is a production of Enchanted Sky Media. To contact us, get more information on today's show, or to subscribe to the podcast, go to code3podcast.com.